Hello and welcome. Today's conversation is for every young graduate who's excited, confused, ambitious, anxious, or simply trying to figure out where to begin. Because let's be honest, building a career today is not simple. The old formulas do not always work. A degree alone is not enough. Job titles can be misleading. Social media makes everyone else seem successful. Many young minds and people are left wondering, what should I do? How should I start? How do I build something meaningful in a world changing this fast? That is why this conversation matters. Our guest today, Deepansh Duggal, has seen the world of media, storytelling, and professional reinvention from close quarters. His journey offers valuable lessons not just for aspiring journalists or writers, but for any young person trying to build credibility, stay relevant, and create a career with substance. In this episode, we will talk with him about what really helps young graduates stand out, how to deal with rejection and uncertainty, why communication and curiosity matter more than ever, and how to build a career that is not just impressive on paper, but deeply grounded in skill, resilience, and self awareness. So, if you are a student, a fresher, a first time job professional, or someone still searching for direction, stay with us. This conversation may just help you think differently about your next step. Deepansh, welcome to the podcast. What are the few things that you think you did right to build your career right at the start? We take a lot of decisions at the start of a career. So, what do you think you
So,
did right?
so I think one thing that I did right was that which I mean, all the students that who are watching, it can come with its own challenges because my generation is the one we grew up watching videos and TV and pictures, and we could all do what you love. But then again, you need to understand that what is your passion. At some point, it might not necessarily be the kind of money that you look for. Living a good life. For example, my parents were very adamant on me pursuing doctor, being a doctor. They wanted me to be a doctor, not in hospital. But I think the biggest challenge that I faced there was my heart was I wanted to write first, be a journalist later, of course. The aim was to be a writer, right? So I took an admission in an engineering college, and within the first year, I had this feeling that this is not good. To be very honest, I was not really happy. So for and literally after the second semester, I decided to that's not working out, and I need something different. I actually took an admission in an English honors course that's in Delhi University. I had the cutoff for it, and thankfully to the norms, if you qualify to pass the 12th grade with a certain percentage, and it's valid even after a year. So I took an admission in an English honors course. I read English literature. I learned critical analysis. I learned how to use my critical thinking when it comes to understanding the world around us. And honestly, it was a wonderful experience. And that was, I think, in the second or third year of my college, I started working as an intern, or it was to be precise, it was a retail mission. So Indian Express and intern at Indian Express reached out to me. I reached out to them actually. They wanted somebody on board who would help them write articles. And the year was 2016, I still remember. And that is when I started, and I was in the second year of my college. We are entering 2026, so I have 8 years of full-time experience, or in almost a decade if I want to count. Uh, you know, uh, the my years in college when I was working. So that is how I started. And so to specifically answer your question, what I did right, uh, I think I followed my passion. I think that is one thing I did. Even though now you all know that, and I'll be very frank and honest about it, the kind of money that a journalist makes is nowhere near the kind of money, let's just say, a techie makes. Somebody who lives in Bangalore, and then I compare myself to my peers all the time. Then again, the reality is that this is what I wanted to do. So when I see an article getting published in a Hindustan Times or in a Brain or in a Money Control, it gives me a lot of happiness. I am somewhere satisfied deep down. So yeah, that is one thing that I did right. I would say.
So, a lot of real on campus work, etc., where you started. Now, of course, you're a freelance journalist, you write for some of the leading institutions and publications. But initially, there would have been a lot of rejection, right? How do you deal with that?
See,
Must
and
have
I
been
will
difficult at the start.
I'm really happy you brought this question because there is a lot of rejection, and I want to make this very clear that for somebody who has absolutely no connections in their family. So let me tell you the family that I come from. And a lot of this matters because a lot of students who are watching this who don't have a journalist in their family member, they don't have a blueprint. They don't know where to start from, or they don't even know that, like, for example, even the people that my family knows, even in that circle, we knew absolutely no journalists. So not only did I have absolutely no help, no godfathers is out of question, I had absolutely no one to तो कोई मेरा नाम सा reference नहीं लेते, please hire this person. So the only thing that worked out for me was that I had abilities and I had to constantly, reach out to editors. I had to send them my resume. I had to urge them to take the chance on me, right? Because there are many, and let me tell you one thing: there are a lot of people who take journalism training. They go to ACJ and JNI. There are many journalism colleges, even though they are not doing as well because not a lot of people, not a lot of students are anyway willing to pursue journalism, which is again a separate discussion. But sticking to the topic, I honestly feel rejection is something that I faced a lot. And this is something, and it's not just when I was a fresher that I faced it. I face it even today. Because even today, I see a lot of journalists, mid-level, mid-career journalists, my own peers who have the kind of experience that I have, because they are on good terms with an editor, or because they have a better social media following. A lot of times, my work is sometimes I feel not, and then that happens to everyone. I'm not an exception. A lot of people who don't have that kind of following is, and that's also unfortunate that journalists are also forced to be an influencer. They are forced to have a following. So most definitely, I would say, and that happens in every industry. I'm aware of that too, that happens in every industry. But when it comes to rejection in particular, yes, I have faced it a lot. And again, there was nobody referring me. There was nobody. All I reached out to, I think today I can tell this that if I were to open my Gmail inbox, there is not a single editor of a single publication in this entire country who I haven't written to at some. So let's just say if there is another journalist, same level pay, who has, let's just say, a similar amount of experience as me, but they are, better known or they have connected with editors really well, right? Far better than I have, or they happen to know someone who happens to know someone who can refer their name. So that has obviously worked out in their favor. So yes, I have faced rejection, but that's what I tell myself. I think that's okay, right? I am going to get there one way or another, and that has happened. That has so
So, journalism has changed a lot. Firstly, it is having its own crisis of credibility, and secondly, with AI coming in, everybody seems to have become an overnight journalist. So, how do people create a niche for themselves and create a voice for themselves, which is unique, which is different, not by sensationalism, but just a different voice.
So you brought up AI, and I was instantly reminded of this article that was going viral on Twitter, was published by Network, and you would not believe there was literally an AI prompt written in between that article, and it was obviously, and I'm not, but so I'm obviously naming network team, but we all know that today the sub editors or the senior sub editors or the assistant editors who are working on that desk, they are taking help of AI, right? And that is something which nobody can deny. And today there is a very specific AI framing which anybody can figure out. So I had a relative who recently gave me a call and they said, you write 700 to 800 word pieces. I'm sure you are taking the help of AI. And I responded to this person. I said, any person worth their salt, any editor who's capable enough will know that you have used AI, right? So again, coming back to the question, AI is of course that is something that we can use, right? There's nothing wrong with it. But of course, if you are a writer, a writer primarily, I would say it's better to avoid it because that would, somewhere or the other, it would affect your craft and the way it would affect your voice as a writer. And I think that is one point that nobody brings up about, right, which should be brought up. And again, so your question was about AI and how can a journalist build their voice today? And I'll be very honest, sir. I think there is no other way to be a journalist than to take Instagram. And I'm very honest with this opinion. And you would see a lot of journalists are coming with it. So they speak to this platform where journalists go on the ground. They are reporting stories of how dirty Yamuna is. They recently did a really good job with their pollution. So when it comes to building your voice as a journalist today, I think, and I write for a lot of these publications as well, I think it is far more important to keep the legacy. media to leave these publications and also build something of your own, build something independent. Right? For example, let's say what a news laundry is. It's still a publication or a media house or a media agency, but they are doing something right? They are doing it on their own terms and they are subscriber friendly, right? So they are not relying on advertisers either. So I think to build your voice as a journalist today, firstly, there is a lot going against you, right? There, if you were to speak to power, if you were to call out the government, you will get legal notice. You will be, I mean, if you don't have that kind of following, today we are seeing even influencers with 100K, 200K followers, they are getting legal notices, right? So again, to anybody who's watching, and if there's an aspiring journalist who's watching this, I would want to tell them that I'm not saying journalism is not shouldn't do, you must. It is very important. But before you venture into it, please be aware of the challenges that are waiting you, right? That are waiting for you because there are quite a lot of them, right? And it might, and today I'm telling you, sir, after spending 5 to 10 years in this industry, everybody becomes kids. Nobody, I think at the age of 30, it's very common that after you reach up, you are assistant medical, you now switch to PR. So you go for a higher. So that is the norm, and you can't really blame people. So to build your voice as a journalist, I would say no matter how difficult it is, be honest, speak truth to power, and don't copy others, and just try to bring your own personality into reporting. Even if you are on ground, even if you are you're sharing an opinion, be yourself and be authentic because that will sell.
No, the, in today's world where social media makes it so easy for people to judge others, pass comment, or run trolls and campaigns, is it more difficult to have a strong opinion of your own? Because so much happens so quickly.
Absolutely, I think it is very difficult and it's not easy at all. Today, if you were to write a film review and let's say if it so I recently wrote a review of Durandar, right? Durandar Part Two, the Revenge. That's the second, the sequel of the film that is opening Silver last year. And honestly, about and all of this created, I know for a fact, is PR budget. That there is a budget that has been allocated, and the links of these articles. There's literally a WhatsApp group where these articles are shared, where these trolls are told that you should go and attack this, that you should go and attack this person who was not elected. So again, there are so I mean, there's a lot that speaks the truth has to go through, right? And trolling is, of course, one part of it. I think I was recently reading about this journalist who exposed within the book, right, the transport minister and how he has a company, I think, or he's involved with the company, allegedly, who sells speed. And this person was sued for 200 crores, this influence. So you can only imagine what are people, even the people, journalists and even influencers today? They are doing the jobs of the journalists. They are not traditional journalists. They are not writing for Hindustan Times or Times of India. पर वो फिर भी इतने honest है कि वो अपना काम सच्चाई से कर रहे हैं and they are also getting hounded for it. So yes, the challenges are many. Because from trolling is just a part of it. I think trolling is also something that you can get over. You can, in a few days, can what happens when somebody tries to pursue you legally. If that is something which would bother me.
So you have, worked full time in organizations, and now you are a freelance journalist writing for multiple outlets. Which is more preferable? Because it is challenging being a freelance journalist.
There are many challenges being freelance journalist, and honestly, I think so. I was so in my 8 years of career, before of course it's a decade long, but 8 years I would count strictly when I did the first 2 years and the next and later 4 years were spent as an independent journalist. Now, freelance is a word that I have always struggled with, right? And there is a very popular saying online these days, freelance isn't free. Because a lot of people feel that this is the kind of profession where you do, which is a hobby, right? This is not going to get you money, right? And of course, it's very difficult also to make a living out of this, which I have done the last few years. So I think despite all of these challenges, I would prefer being an independent journalist or being a freelancer because I feel more so because I am very free. Now, again, journalism might not always be free. Writing is an integral part of being a journalist. But again, there is no quoting. It's there for bars. You have to gather sources. You have to speak to them. So again, I think what I'm trying to get at here is that when you are working a 9 hour shift, let's just say you are in the newsroom, you have to track the news. If there is a PM Modi who's giving a speech, you have to tweet it out. You have to write a copy. You have to do it very quickly. So let me tell you, a lot of these journalists who are especially the breaking news desks, there are film desks, there is political desk, there is entertainment desk, there is feature desk. Breaking news desk is under immense pressure. And to make one error, so if you don't write the copy on time, you lose out on deadline. If you make one single error while writing that copy, you will be in big trouble because then people will read it and they'll be screenshots and the publication will take it, their name. So I have, handled these pressures for the first 4 years, and I have covered some major stories during the lockdown. But eventually, I think why I left the freelance is also because it allows me to be creative. Since there is no specific time for me to log in, I have to log in at 9 p.m., 15 p.m., and then I have to stay on the shift till 6 p.m. There is no pressure. There is no pressure of being in an office, right? Which again is very freeing. It is almost liberating that I can sit and focus on my art and I can write 1,000. Now, in a newsroom, you will not be asked to write 1,000 word film. They are not going to ask you that. That is something that you can do when you are at home, when you are freelancing, and you are getting paid. So again, and it's very challenging. Let me tell you. Anybody who's listening to this, it's very difficult, right? But the kind of benefits that come out of it, you don't have to be in an office. You can work at your own pace, even though there are deadlines. You have to adhere to deadlines. So again, I would personally prefer freelance journalism despite its many challenges because it has its own positives, which I definitely prefer over being a full-time journalist. Yeah.
So just moving on to another side of what I would call popular journalism, which is say reviewing films as a critic or uh, just reviewing them to give an opinion. So when you look at a film, for example, and you want to write a review, do you look at it as what you think the audience will like, or is it your own opinion on the technical aspects of it? What do you look for? Say you were looking at a Dhurandhar, which is a rage today. What would you look at? Would you look for popular perception to give a good review, or would it be your own opinion?
So I think, thank you for asking this. I honestly feel I never ever, until date, I have never seen what other critics are like. And I don't care what they are. There have been times, and firstly, I think, let me just get this started. No film critic should ever see the box office collections. Right? Okay, this film is doing 100 crores or 1800 crores or 1900 crores at the box office. So there must be something wrong with my absolutely not. Right? And I don't think film critics should in any way be forced to confirm the popular hits. Right? We Today everybody's every tweet that is actually a piece of criticism, right? And it's not that if you write for HT or if you write out 10, for 10 other publications, only then you are film, right? Everybody's film today. It's a very social media has made everything very different. So again, it's a subjective opinion. It's an individual opinion, right? And again, when I'm watching a film, I go with a blank slate in the sense that let's just say if there is a film which I have watched, which I have not liked. Of course, there are certain aspects of it which I felt they don't sit right with me. I would go and I would write it in my review, right? And I would not care, what even other critics are saying, because it's possible that, and this has happened before, and the film was Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan, right? And at that point of time, so the chatter around this film, everybody was saying before the film itself that it's one of the best films that has ever been made. I watched the first day post show and I did not like it. And I wrote it in my review. And I said to the editor who I was writing for at that point of time, and the editor said, Deepansh, you have criticized the film. Are you sure? Because a lot of people, and that was because a lot of editors, whenever I send them a review, they believe him. They know, so whatever he's writing, I mean, he must have felt. And I would say, I said, listen, I've seen the film. And I know it will take a few days. A lot of people will not agree with this opinion, but after a while, once this discourse is over, they will see merit in our opinion. And that is exactly what happened. Oppenheimer won at the Oscar, won Best Picture. Christopher Nolan won the Best Director. And once he won the best director, that is when people go. That is when the article that I had written, when the film released, 8 months, 6 to 7 months of that, that article in a way got back. So I have never seen what other people are saying, and no film critic should really be bothered about. And you can't be, because when you have an embargo, all the reviews will, you can't really check, what other critics are writing. Your review is live before sometimes what you have even read what other people are saying. And specifically speaking about Thunder, even there are obviously political undertones in the film, and even people who have watched it, even some of its admirers are now, able to pick up on the fact that the film does try to justify a lot of mistakes or a lot of wrongs of the current government as much as possible, particularly demonetization. And I think even the biggest supporters of demonetization in many ways have made it clear that listen, you know, this could have been a mistake. But then
So
the
that is
way that state, yeah,
that's the point I'm trying to get at. So Oppenheimer, I understand, but when we look at the highly jingoistic, loud, hyper nationalistic films on war or on other real life events that happened, which are being presented in a different way, how how do you criticize it? I mean, if you don't like it, how do you say it? I mean, you'll be labeled as anti-national or something like that.
yes, in fact, I have been called anti-national. I think, and anti-national is one of the very small. It's a very, to put it mildly, the kind of comments that I have received in the last few days. They've been horrendous, right? And honestly, see, I am quite honest with my team, and just so to say, how do I see it? Of course, it requires a lot of courage in saying a lot of those things. And a lot of people are feeling it. I'm telling you, sir, they don't share stories on Instagram, but privately, a lot of people have reached out to me and said, this is literally what we felt, and you have said it. We wish we could say something like this, right? And they agree with it. So, again, so to your point, what you asked me, when there are hyper nationalistic films, and with Dhurandhar in particular, there is so much of fiction. So, fiction is being used to justify, things which happen. And even then, and even and forget the politics. A lot of people say, "Why do you talk about the politics? Talk about the craft." There is literally a shot in the film where there is a cameraman. It's going viral everywhere. As a director who's known for peak detailing, who's known for, I mean, people are saying that he's the second coming of Alfred Hitchcock, right? If that is the case, how can you not know that in one of the shots of your film, in the mirror reflection, the cameraman is visible? It's a big error. And now the film that is running in the theaters, the new print, that error has been fixed. So first, it requires a lot of courage in pointing out, you know, these things whenever there is happen. And I'm very particular with my language. I'm very clear, and I make sure that I'm never giving out an opinion directly. I always argue it. I always, so if there is a conclusion, right? I never reach that conclusion without building an argument and without citing specific examples from the film explaining why I feel that. If I'm saying that the film is propaganda film, I am actually arguing. And a lot of people don't read that. Let me be very honest. They go on Instagram, they see a quote. They will never, nobody has the patience today to sit and read a 900 word review. Nobody's reading it. एक शब्द पढ़ा और opinion बना लिया. That is
Fair
also
enough. Fair enough. But to be able to write and provide perspective, what is the kind of reading that you do? What do you read? What do journalists read? What do independent journalists read?
see. I'll be very honest, and this is an opinion which I feel very strongly about. I never read what other critics are writing, right? Because that I feel will perhaps even subconsciously influence me to change my words and to write in a way which is not authentic to me. So I do read other critics, but what I do read a lot is I consume a lot of pop culture, right? I of course I review books, so every now and then I would read an author who I really like, who I really resonate with. I recently read this book by Zarna Garg. She's a comedian, and she lives in US. She is of Indian origin, and I'm really into memoirs. I don't read self help, right? That is something which I absolutely don't resonate with. I read memoirs, I read personal experiences because I think there is so much to learn from people who share their lives. And yeah, I think that is something that I read, and that is something that I draw a lot of inspiration from. But if you were to ask me if there is any specific writer or a website I read, vis-a-vis online, not particularly. Yeah.
That's interesting to know because often we think that what would these people be reading? And I'm sure a lot of preparation goes on behind the scenes before you write any piece. So that's good to know. But just going back to our young learners, and this is the final segment. What would your advice be for somebody coming out of college wanting to pursue journalism? Not just do it as a course, but pursue it as a career. What would you advise them? What should they do, or what should they not do? Just a couple of points on either side.
So I think first I would definitely just anybody who wants to pursue journalism. Firstly, I would want them to speak to journalists. And I know it can be difficult to reach out to those people, but you can DM them. You can DM them on Twitter, you can DM them on Instagram. That is something which I wish I had done in my time. I wish I had spoken to a lot of people and they would have given me a better idea of it. But again, that when I was getting started with it, that was still a better time. Now, of course, the budgets and the funding for publications is it's not as healthy as it used to be. So for sure, reach out to people, speak to them, and be aware of certain realities, right, which are associated with this profession. And if you still want to pursue it, that is great. And there are a lot of people, sir, who I would believe would get demotivated, but they don't get demotivated. They know what will be the consequences of venturing into journalism, and they still do it because they are honest like that. So there are people who would still do it, and that's great. Hats off to them. But then before you venture into it, especially if you're a student, just see if your family is financially healthy. Just see maybe 7 to 8 years down the line when you're no longer a fresher, when you have 2 to 4 years of experience, and if you're looking for a switch, just see what kind of salary packages are at work, right? So, and again, we and just know about the working hours as well, because shifts in journalism are not, you know, it's not, even if you're working in an agency in advertising, it's a very different kind of shift. Journalism, of course, there will be a hospital system. You will be asked to pitch in on holidays. You might have to work weekends. I have worked late night weekend shifts as well when I was working as a full time journalist. So these are a few factors which every person should, and just do your research, is what I would say.
That's very sage and practical advice. Dipansh, thank you very much for joining me today. You were very candid, open, and you doled out just the right practical advice which will be useful for our young learners. Thank you. All the best, and hope to see you more and more of your writing.
Thank you so much, sir. It's been a pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you.